Well, it looks like the handy dandy wire wheel did a pretty good job on this. I don't know if you can, how well you can see this, but the pretty much almost all of the corrosion and any trace thereof. I mean, there's like a little trace here or there, but where it's located is inconsequential. Looks like there's a ding right here. I might just try and pound that little ding out. I don't know if you can see that, but right there, there's like a ding. Huh. Who knew? So, let me try and pound that out. Shouldn't be too hard. And then, so let's see how well this cover is going to fit me. Figured it'd be better to try and test fit this cover now rather than once I get the contact on there, so that way I don't damage the contacts after having put all that effort into putting it back together. Oh boy. Heck, I might need to hit the old heat gun in order to get this thing back on here. Yep. Alrighty. Pick up with the old handy dandy heat gun. Now, I'm not too concerned with the top edge of this being hard and stiff, because once it's together, it'll actually help to hold. I mean, I'm thinking this is going to help to hold the pad onto the frame for the base, and it doesn't matter, you know, if it's flexible or not, because that's not the key part. That, I mean, it has nothing to do with the actual contacts of the horn. It's also meaning why I left it intact, and also for aesthetics. I don't want this to look chopped up on the top edge where it's a lot more visible than the bottom edge when this is all together and sitting in the car. So, let's see. Oh yeah, that helps a lot. Alrighty. You know what? I think what may help is if I trim these edges. I think I'm going to trim these edges to be round. I think that'll help it. And to take it on and take it off. And I think it'll also help it to prevent any damage from the inside with sharp edges. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it back to the base of this crease. I don't know if you can really see that all too well, but there's a crease right along here. It starts here and it goes all the way across. As I said, I took away the lip, but I took it to one side of the, on the crease, but I think I'm going to take it back to the base of that crease. And I may do that on the belt sander rather than the grinder. I think it'll give me a better edge. So, let's give that a shot. Okie dokie, I had to reposition the camera. If you should happen to see my face, I apologize. No one really wants to see that. They want to see me, if they want to look at this, they want to see me do work. So, let me see if I get... Okie dokie now. I trimmed that trim that edge back. And as I suspected, you know, the belt sander gave me a little bit of a better edge. Alright, take 3. Let's see if I can put this in here without having to heat the cover. Trim these edges back just that much more. Because once, just for perspective, once this is in here, you won't really see the edges, and it's not like they're gonna go anywhere. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll trim that and that. So what I'm thinking is now that the base is smaller, essentially smaller, that the it's compensating for how much the pad has shrunk. Oh, I don't know if it's clear, but here you can see the difference in terms of the shade of green. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah, you know, one being a lighter green versus the other being a dark green. So gotta be careful with this, because see there, it just split. So well, this is a bummer. This just lets me know that I should be more diligent about using the heat gun in order to get these get this thing back together. Alrighty, I'm not going to let that deter me. So let's see about banging that out. I think I have. Might have to be a little bit more robust than that. Here we go. Yeah, this'll do. That should suffice. Well, now it's time to look at this and epoxy it back together. First thing we're going to need to do is to clean this thing. And all the little plastic parts. Okay, so I'm going to use a 2-part epoxy in order to epoxy all these little pieces back together again onto the contact. And what I've already done, because this part's, you know, what I've already done is kind of boring to watch, but I've managed to line out like which pieces go where, because otherwise, I mean, I started out with a big pile of pieces. I'm like, well, gotta figure out which goes where, so like a puzzle. Now this epoxy that I'm using, this is an old epoxy. Let's see, here's the label for it. It's an old, oh man, I can't even see the label, but it is made in America. It's called Clear Weld, and it's pretty old. And so what I'm going to do is this is the part A, and this is the part A, and this is the part B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, because I've used it before, you can tell, but I'm going to open this, and since it's not even, I'm going to dispense some of the part A off to the side to discard it. So that way I have an equal amount of part A and part B. And then after that, I'm going to mix it dispense it into, this is the package. It's actually kind of convenient where the package has this little mixing tray with a paddle to go already with it. So I'm going to dispense it into there, mix it, and start putting this together. Now I'm using a slow epoxy. It takes 30 minutes for it to actually bond and set, because you need time in order to do this kind of detailed work. So hopefully this will even open. Gosh, if it doesn't open, I guess we're out of this before we even get started. Let's see. I know I have some pliers. So thanks to my handy dandy engineer pliers, managed to get this open. Alrighty, let's dispense some of the part B, so that way, oh gosh, I hope this thing doesn't squirt all over the place. There we go, and there. Alrighty, yes, now. Fortunately, this, as I said, you know, it's a slower epoxy. It'll take a half hour to set, and then 2 hours before you can even consider touching this stuff. So it gives me plenty of time to do the detailed work of putting these little teeny pieces back where they belong. And that's okay with them. I have to make myself less impatient. Now, you know, this is still like a hope this works kind of a thing, because after all, when I started on this project, the horn was broken. So what's the worst that can happen is the horn stays broken. So if this works, I'll consider it a success. Now, one of the things I'm also going to do is, now that I have this on here and it's all pretty well, it's aligned pretty well, and again, you know, at the risk of being redundant, using the slow epoxy, I'm going to put a blob, just a little dab on each joint where it broke. If it turns out to be too thick, no big deal. That's why Mr. Dremel invented his rotary tool. I can use that to trim things down. Now, in a futile attempt at trying to minimize how much this stuff sticks to the paper, I'm going to move this up a few inches. Yeah, so I got like most of the goop away from it, but I'm totally prepared, thinking that, yeah, this is still gonna like stick to the paper. I expect it to. If it doesn't, I would be genuinely astounded. So that's it until maybe tomorrow. I like to let epoxy really sit and really cure for a long time. You know, I see on the instructions says, oh yeah, in 1 hour you can this, or in 2 hours you can that. It's like, as I mentioned a moment ago, as a chemist, you know, I worked at a place where we made this stuff, and even we didn't wait. I mean, unless it was part of the marketing that, oh, quick epoxy, and we put a timer on it in 30 minutes, da 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 da. But in general, no, we always let this stuff sit overnight before we do a test. So that's it. So here we are, day 2, and the epoxy is fully cured. So yeah, even though it's old epoxy, it did really well. So anyway, I sort of muttered last time about I suspect that this piece is made out of stainless steel, because I didn't see any rust as I was cleaning it up. So one of the ways to confirm that is to use a magnet Now, mind you, there are some stainless steels out there that will be attracted to magnets, but most will not. And let's see, just to compare, this is the base. Yep, pretty obvious that the base is made out of regular steel. Well, what do you know? How about that? That's confirmed. That's stainless steel. Alrighty, let's see about separating this from the paper. Overall, it looks pretty good. Looks like all of the insulation is on there pretty well. I'm pretty happy with this. So here we go. Now I can't emphasize that cannot be too what's a good way to put it? Too enthusiastic or too energetic with doing this. The more caution, the better. There we go. Let's see how this looks. Not as messed up or not as bad as I kind of figured. Now mind you, when this is all reassembled, the most critical surface is this surface right here, because this is the surface that makes the, that gets into contact with this surface here. So you push down on this part of it. So how this side looks is it doesn't matter in terms of how it's going to ultimately operate. And most of the surfaces where it's going to make contact, where you can actually hear the horn, will be along these ridges. I don't know how well that these can be seen, but you can see how there's kind of like an X embossed in here and an X here, and then this part here where yesterday I sort of pounded it out a little bit so that way I didn't have that ding. And so that's what's going to be making contact, are those two surfaces. So this is like, the critical surface where everything needs to be clean and not covered with residue. So let's see about cleaning up the bottom of this. I think what I'm going to do is break out with Mr. Dremel's handy dandy rotary tool and see about trimming away. Well, like right here is a big glob of epoxy, big glob there, right along the edge. So let me set this up with the right kind of tip on there, and we'll get back. Let's do our safety. Get our stuff on here. This side does not have to be absolutely perfect and pretty, because this is the side that is going to be in contact with the pad. So it's not going to make a difference just how pretty this is. So, well, let's continue. Okay. So this side looks pretty good. Now, I'm looking at wanting to this right now. So now what I'm going to do is trim down around these pins, so that way, because you might be able to see, there's like right here, there's like an excessive amount of epoxy that's sort of built up which I had intended, so that way there's something for me to work down to where, in order to add strength to these pieces. And I was okay with there being like a little excess of epoxy, so that way I can trim it back down and have it be the right thickness for when I install it back onto here, onto the base. So let's see how this is looking so far. For the most part, it's looking pretty good. Let's see here. Obviously, you got to see if it's going to... Yep, there it goes. Kitchen. Okay, so I've laid this down on a piece of wood because, well, this board's has a more consistent or more homogeneous sort of appearance to it compared to the bench top. In any case, what I'm going to do is to use the Dremel to sort of clean up around each of these posts, so that way I have a nicely shaped round post as close to like this original one here, as close to that one as possible, so that way it'll slip into each of the holes right here in the base. So and I'm being really careful because this, with this plastic being out of its service life, it's not very flexible, and I really don't want to crack this and have to start over and do some more epoxying. So let's get started and see what happens. Worst that can happen is that the horn still doesn't work. Alrighty. Alright, let's do a test fit and see what happens. Aha. I already cracked it. Right there. There's a crack right there. I could already tell as I was installing it. I don't know if you can see it, but there it is. So, as long as this holds together, and some of the, and the insulation pieces don't start falling out, we should be bitchin'. Okay, we got an issue here with this guy. I have to work this one down a little bit more. Let's see, what about the other ones? Well, I got this all together here. How the other one's looking? That one's good. How about that? Most of them seem to be working out pretty well. That one needs work. That one obviously needs work. So both of these need work. That one looks like it needs a little work. That one's fine. Okay. Well, let's do some more work on this. Okay, let's see if this is going to fit. This one looks almost still a little thick, actually. But let's give it a shot. Nice and easy. Come on, there you go. Okay. Thought so. There we go. Although I think I may trim this a little bit more on these edge ends, looking at how this is designed and put together. In any case, let's do the old continuity meter test. Now I have this set up for audible continuity test, so as soon as these things touch, it lets you know. Contact, no contact. So, obviously, this is best not be making any kind of noise right off the bat. Pitching, just to show. So far, so good. Now back here, there's a thingy. Let's see if I could put this in here. Let's see if it'll hold. I'll put this against there. Now, hey! Get out of my way. Look up. I'm coming for you. Oh, this is looking pretty good. I'm becoming more and more optimistic with each stage of success. Okay, so now, so that this stays in place, and as I said, I think I'm going to want to trim these edges just a wee bit more, because it does not look like it fits really well into this recess where it looks like it was intended to fit. So I think I'm going to futz with that. Now, in case anyone's curious, when I remove this from here, I don't simply pry it away. What I do is I press down on each of the little pins from the back, which will help to, it's more like pushing it out rather than pulling it away. And it helps to reduce the amount of stress placed on the plastic pieces. Oh, now, oh, I know, one of them's tends to be just a wee tiny bit stubborn at times, a little fussy. There we go. Get up there. That's done. Let's see. There we are. There. So, after I trim these ends, I test fit this. What I intend on doing is I'm going to put epoxy on a few of these, probably on those which had originally been riveted. So if I were to line this up, and assuming it goes on here like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put epoxy on the here, 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 and there. Looks like they put it on in a zigzag. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so epoxy these in place while I leave the unmolested pins unmolested. Suppose I could use these or consider these to be guide pins, and then these would be the attaching points. So that's exactly what I'm going to do this. Oh, this is actually really interesting how this is designed. I think the reason why they did those is that they put heat on both sides. If you look at where the heat rivet was on this side is how it's attached to the contact. There's one here and there. There's a heat rivet here. You can see it was there. It looks like there's one here. You can see, yeah. So they just simply pinched it together for each of these attaching points. That's how they built it. So the thing was put into place, and then just simply went in and there you are. Okay. So, when we come back, I'm gonna get started on doing the epoxying, and at the same time, use that epoxy to repair this tear that I created yesterday. So, yeah. So let's get started on that.